All right, so next phylum of the animal kingdom that we're going to be looking at is the mollusca. We have looked at the porifera, the cnidaria, and then the three worm phyla, the platyhelminthes, the nematoda, and the annelida. Now we're going to move on to the mollusca. Successful group, 150,000 species. These structures are in general for this particular phylum, but as we look at the classes within the phylum, we're going to see some other distinctions between the different classes of the phylum. But anyway, this phylum is made up of coelomates, meaning they have a coelom, which if we go back to discussing that, we said that the coelom was a cavity formed by the mesoderm, which allows for the mesoderm to hold the organs in place and also to stabilize the gut. And then you have the coelom, which is kind of a gap in there, so that every time muscles move, your digestive tract doesn't move with it. All right, the protostome, that's a little bit of a new one. We discussed that a little bit last time. Remember, this has to do with that blastula stage in embryonic development, where an indentation into the blastula is the blastopore, forming the blastopore, and the blastopore forms the mouth in the protostomes, and then eventually the anus develops as it proceeds to invaginate into there. Okay, they all have some sort of muscular foot used for movement. They have a mantle, which, if you think of a mantle as being like a cloak, more or less it's tissue that covers the internal organs in that of the mollusk, and in some cases the mantle is responsible for secreting the shell, which some mollusks have. All right, habitat of mollusks. They are found everywhere, marine, freshwater, terrestrial. And think about that, that allows for, that diversity that we have. They've been able to take in different habitats. Reproduction is sexual, meaning, you should know, and most of them have separate sexes, but there may be some that are hermaphroditic. You should know what that means also. Now, let's review a couple other terms. These guys are eukaryotic, and they're animals, so they are heterotrophic. Don't confuse heterotrophic with hermaphroditic. Okay, go back and check the meanings on those if you're not sure, but by now you should know what those things mean. All right, so moving on. The first class that we'll look at are the bivalvia. Remember, the class is the next level down in the classification system, and we had the kingdom, the phylum, and then the class. We did that also with the worms. So now let's look at this grouping here, bivalvia. So bivalves, two valves. Okay, these guys, listen to the characteristics, see if you can figure out what they are. They have two shell halves, so then they're hinged. They will have siphons to allow water in because they are filter feeders. Now we saw filter feeders in one of our other phylums. The peripheral were filter feeders. Now we said they were filter feeders because they were sessile. So possibly these guys may not move around a whole lot. Some examples, now mind you these are just some examples. The mussels, and there are freshwater, saltwater mussels. The oyster and the scallop, all examples. We might spend a little bit of time talking about a certain type of mussel, the zebra mussel, which has been out there in the news for a while. And oysters producing pearls. Now, that's a little interesting story in itself. Oysters produce pearls because a little bitty grain of sand gets inside their shell and it irritates. It's like having grit in your eyeball. It's irritating. So what the oyster does is excrete a chemical that keeps wrapping up that little piece of sand, and eventually you get the pearl forming from that, but it's surrounded by that slime that the little oyster creates to get rid of the irritation, and then we get pearls from that. Pretty cool. These scallops, now if you've ever, the scallops have the nice funny ridges around their shells, and what's really cool is watching these little guys swim as they move. We'll watch a video on that. They actually can swim along the bottom. What's also interesting about these little guys is if you look at the edges of the shell, they appear to have little blue eyes along the edges. So we'll look at that too. So interesting little guys. Those are bivalves. The class Gastropoda, now you really should be able to figure out what this word means, since we've seen poda before, like with pseudopodia, which meant false foot. So poda, foot, gastrovascular cavity, gastrodermis with the cnidaria, stomach-footed. See, if you know those terms, you can break it down and figure out the meaning. These are the stomach-footed mollusks. They have a radula, which is a sandpaper-like tongue, so that they can scrape algae off of the subsurface, whatever the substrate is, or off of my aquarium. All right. Examples of these guys are your snails, whether they're terrestrial or aquatic, and the slugs. The slugs are the ones that do not have a shell. Okay? A really good example is the banana slug. They're really cool. They get big. They're fun. And we'll look at these guys and some of their survival techniques, which are really neat. Okay, the last class of the mollusca are the cephalopoda. We know poda means foot. Cephalo, we haven't really talked about that one yet. Head. So these are your head-footed. But they look like the feet come off the head. They have tentacles. In many cases, 8. They have a very powerful beak, and we'll look at this. If you see it, it really does look like the beak of an eagle or a hawk, and they use that for eating. Most of the times you won't see it because you have the tentacles over it and the mouth is back here hidden behind all that. This particular class, they have large eyes, they have a well-developed brain, they are able to use jet propulsion to move, so they have a siphon where they can then eject water out and shoot along through the water. They have an ink sac, which is used to allow them to get away, so they can squirt ink out and makes it all cloudy and you can't see things, and they can get away. Now, we're going to come back to some of these here because of this. They're carnivores. You already know what a carnivore is. Well, because they're carnivores, they're predators, there's value in these traits. One, the tentacles are going to help them grab and hold on to their prey, and also help them manipulate things. Obviously, the beaks help tear through the meat on the animal. Large eyes for being able to see better. They're starting to show here characteristics that we see in predators, especially like your top predators. Large eyes, well-developed brain, they are intelligent. They can problem solve. And hopefully I can find my little video showing that with the octopi and how they can be presented with a problem and they learn how to solve that problem, figure it out, like to obtain food and that. So these are characteristics that you're going to see with your predators. Think about it, they need to outsmart their prey. Alright? Alright, examples of the cephalopods. Octopus, squid, and nautilus. Now, the octopus does not have a shell on the outside. Okay, so it does not produce a shell, which is actually kind of cool because, as you hopefully will see in one of the videos, they can get their little bodies into weird places that you wouldn't think that they would be able to. The squid has an internal shell, and the nautilus has a shell on the outside, kind of like a snail. And they actually look like, to me, they always look like somebody took a squid and shoved it tail first into a snail shell, and then the little tentacles come out and get the big eyes. They're cute. But we will look at each of these. All right. What is the importance of mollusks? Well, for a lot of us, they're a food source. You can eat them. For your oysters also, and any of them that have shells, you can make decorative things or jewelry from the pearls and the shells and all that. Your gastropods help eat detritus. We already know what detritus is. So, very useful, guys. All right, that'll do it for the mollusks for the time being.